Welcome, everyone. Everyone's coming into the webinar, so welcome. And let's get started. So for all of you joining today for the first time, I just want to welcome you to the Academy of Integrative Health and Medicine, and thank you for coming to our Friday Wellness webinar. We are thrilled to have with us Beth Rosenthal from ACIH, and she is going to be presenting today on a remedy for self-care for practitioners and patients. And while we're waiting for folks to join, people are still coming in. I just want to give you a little bit about the Academy. The Academy of Integrative Health and Medicine is a global interprofessional integrative health association working to transform healthcare, body, mind, spirit, community, and planet. And we're just really excited today to have our special guest, Beth Rosenthal, with us. She's the author of Replenish, a life-enhancing activity book, and it's that easy, the high vibe guide to attracting what you really want. She has been the director of working groups and special projects at the Academic Collaborative for Integrative Health, and has recently become their interim executive director, and we are all just thrilled about having you in that role, Beth. So
thank you
for doing that. And she presents at venues ranging from the Golden Door Spa to nonprofits serving in disadvantaged families, clarifying what makes people happy and how to implement those actions. So truly, at this time in history, in our lives, you're like a gift, because we are all in need of this type of support. So welcome, Beth.
Thank you, Tabby. Jess, is this time for me to share my screen? I think it is.
Yeah, you can do that
definitely.
now.
Go for it.
Okay, great. Well, it's my privilege and honor to be with you all today. And so thank you for having me. And this is the material we can all use. I get the benefit just from preparing for it. Jess, are you able to take back the screen and play our welcome song?
I don't know. You can play it now, and we can hear it from your sharing.
Okay.
If you want, you should have that option clicked that you're sharing your computer audio. So if you play the song.
All right. Let's see here to get back to.
Just maybe.
Let me know if you can hear it. Can you hear it?
High vibes.
Okay, so it started in the middle. Now here we go at the beginning. This is an opportunity just to get moving around. You can stand up if you want to.
Do you want to feel good?
I'm going to stand up because I've been sitting.
Do you want to feel good? If you want to, just start with you and you'll spread some good. Do you want what you want? It's right here, come and get it. If you want it, really want it, you can get what you want. With high vibes, high vibes, with high vibes, high vibes, with high vibes. With some positive action and the law of attraction. Positive action, law of attraction, chain reaction of good. With high vibes, high vibes, with high vibes, high vibes, high vibes.
All right, so that's a little movement there, and I want to thank my friend Nick Cohen-Carroll, who composed and performed that. And you can find him he's got a new comedy show on YouTube. So thank you, Mick. And now about me. As Tabby introduced, I am an author. I am the new interim executive director at the Academic Collaborative for Integrative Health, and I'm a high vibe guide. And just to give you a little bit of background about what brought me here, I had a lot of health challenges growing up. I saw a lot of doctors, and I was really interested in learning everything I could about what I could do to help myself feel better. I tried every kind of diet, every kind of physical activity, meditation, yoga, energy healing, and all of these things were considered very strange when I was growing up. And it was holistic, integrative doctors who figured out when I was 25 years old that I had chemical sensitivities and food allergies to almost everything. I then went ahead, I learned about a very strict rotation diet, I learned lifestyle habits, and I started feeling better than I had ever felt. But I still didn't have that level of optimal wellness that I was really seeking. So I continued the search, reading books, taking courses in the area of health, wellness, personal development, spiritual fulfillment, all of these things I still really love. And all of these experiences really formed who I am and led me to working in the health and wellness area, in writing books, in speaking, and in what we're doing today, and all the practices and teachings that I've learned and continue to learn. I share them so you can figure out what might work for you, no matter where we are on our path or what kind of experiences we've had, whether you've had a lot of experience in this area or this is all new. We can all use reminders to stay on our path and to actually do practices that we enjoy and that work for us. And that is the purpose of today. So here's an overview. We have our intro and welcome, about 5 minutes. We'll just talk really briefly about why practitioner self-care is so important. And then for the biggest part of today, we're going to actually engage in a few self-care practices, have an opportunity to try them, feel good, learn about what the research says about them, and talk about strategies for implementing in our regular lives. And then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So let's start with why practitioner self-care is so important. And let's see if I'm able to see the chat while we're doing this. Okay, I do not think I can see the chat while I'm in full screen like this, or if I can, I don't know. So Jess and Tabby, if any comments or questions come in that you want to share, that's fine. Or if you want to wait till the end, that's fine too. But why is practitioner self-care so important? So just think about that a moment. Some thoughts I have on this is practitioners are role models for patients. And so what you do is very important. And when you're taking care of yourself, your patients will see that. So it helps patients in that way. And I can see now that the chat has dropped down. So that's great. Let me see if I can. Good. Okay, great. Another reason self-care is so important is when we take care of ourselves, we're more likely to be able to respond rather than react. And that is really important for any kind of collaboration, especially interprofessional collaboration. So taking care of ourselves helps us with collaboration, which helps with patient care. And then the third thing I'll mention is when we really practice good self-care, we are likely to be able to take better care of others. And there's a reason that we're told to put our own oxygen mask on first. So self-care is just really important. And now I think we're doing great on time. We're going to actually talk about and engage in a few of these self-care practices. I'm going to talk about 3 of them today. And we're going to start with appreciation. So here's just 3 general tips for practicing appreciation. You can make a list of 10 things that are easy for you to appreciate. And they can be general, like appreciating that you're breathing, or that the sun is out, or they can be specific, like if you have a great computer that you're really happy with, or experiencing fast internet, or having a tasty cup of tea. So there's just the act of appreciation. You can pause during the day and take note of something that's going well. So just that moment of pausing and taking 3 deep breaths and savoring the experience can feel like soaking it in like a sponge. And this practice comes from Rick Hanson, a really great mindfulness teacher, and he calls it take in the good. And the third suggestion is before you go to sleep at night, you can write down 5 things that you appreciate. And again, it doesn't have to be hard. It can just be something easy for you. And this is a really great way to set your tone for happy sleep. You enter into the sleep phase thinking about the things that you appreciate. And some people find that having an appreciation journal and keeping it by their bedside really works for them. Make it into a habit. Now we get to practice a little bit. So really, we can do this in 1 minute, and that's the point of the 3 practices I'm going to show you today. If and when you have more time, great, you can always use it. But if you only have a minute, you can still do something. So I'm going to set the timer for a minute and just appreciate something in your life. It could be something as general as I'm breathing, or you can think about something or someone that makes you smile. It can really be anything, big or small. So here we go, 1 minute. And that's a minute. It felt pretty long to me. And so if you can take 1 minute during your day, you can have that wonderful experience. What does the research say about appreciation? Well, over the past 2 decades, there's been, according to this article, studies have consistently identified strong benefits for our minds, bodies, and relationships, such as being more resilient to stress, getting along better with others, feeling less depressed, being able to achieve more, and being more helpful and generous. And here's a graphic I really like because it divides some of the findings of research for gratitude or appreciation into 3 broad areas: our bodies, our minds, and our relationships. And just take a look for social, for example, you feel less lonely and isolated. For physical, having a stronger immune system, being less bothered by aches and pains. For psychological, having higher levels of positive emotions, having more joy and pleasure, more happiness. So very good reasons to practice appreciation. Now you know you can even do 1 minute and have it be good for you. We benefit in all areas of our life when we are feeling and expressing appreciation and gratitude, such as increased happiness, greater satisfaction with life, higher resilience to stress, fewer headaches, less congestion, stomach pain, cough, or sore throat. I just think that that's really cool that this is a research finding. And that's our appreciation. Now let's talk about mindfulness. What is mindfulness? Mindfulness is being consciously aware of your thoughts, and it can be practiced in a wide variety of ways. It's really a life technique. And sure, there's meditating, mindfulness in meditation, There's focusing on your breath. You can be mindful while you're walking in nature, or just being conscious as you're practicing any activity. Mindfulness is simply paying attention in a particular way on purpose, being in the present moment, and being gentle without judgment. And it can enhance relationships, connection, reduce stress, boost the immune system, improve memory, and manage emotions. So some really good stuff. And it's not hard to do. Anyone can do it. It's a way of life. Just bringing, not just, but it's a practice for bringing awareness and caring into everything that we do. It's evidence-based. There's science and experience demonstrating positive benefits for our health, happiness, work, relationships. And interesting enough, according to this article, it sparks innovation, leading to effective responses to seemingly intransigent problems, which all of us can use that as well. So here are some suggestions for practicing mindfulness. I took a mindfulness-based stress reduction course in 2014, and these are among the favorite practices that I learned. We'll go through all three of these. The first, very simple. You can have your hand on your forehead and on your heart or your belly. And just say some soothing phrases like, may I offer myself the kindness that I need. May I be a friend to myself. Forgive, forgive. And I also like, may I be gentle with myself. Doesn't take long to do, but it's just a nice touch. Of course, focusing on the breath is always a good thing. You can equalize your in and outs, or you could lengthen your exhale, or pause after your inhale, or pause after your exhale, relaxing your tongue and your jaw. Simple, we just have to remember to do them. And the last one we'll talk about now is called RAIN. And R, recognize what is happening. And again, these are straight from my notes. Name it to tame it. And then A, allow it. Can I let this be just as it is? Okay, it's like this right now. I, investigate your inner experience with an intimate attention, very gentle, non-judgmental. What am I feeling in my body? Maybe in your eyes or your jaws or your stomach, wherever you're feeling it. Directly contact that felt sense of vulnerability with compassion and gentleness and ask, how can I best take care of myself in this moment? And then N, non-identification is the result. A liberating realization of natural awareness, remembering I am not the clouds, I am the blue sky. Kind of just letting your thoughts, letting them go. And it's not that we can do all these things in the moment, but when we can, it's an option. And this is actually what we're going to do for the 1 minute version. So I'll give you just a few seconds to read it, and then I'll set the timer and I'll lead us through it. All right, setting the timer for 1 minute. So recognize what's going on. What's happening inside me right now? Allow the experience to be there. Acknowledge things are the way they are in this moment. Okay, this is how I feel. And then investigate with interest in a non-judgmental and kind way. Ask, how can I best take care of myself in this moment? What is it that I need? And the result is nourishing myself with self-compassion and simply resting in natural awareness. It's important that this process, we're releasing resistance. And that's a minute. Again, we can really get a lot done in a minute. What does the research say about mindfulness? Research says people who learned mindful breathing weren't less distressed when facing similar stressors, but were more accepting of their distress, which helped them tolerate the stressors better, releasing resistance. Simple, not always easy. Mindfulness training increases confidence, intelligence, focus at work, leading to greater well-being. And that's mindfulness. And we're going to spend more time here on this rest and renewal practice. What is rest and renewal? Well, it's being deliberate about building in rest, renewal, and recovery time, building it into your schedule. And it makes sense because athletes do this. The best athletes know about rest and recovery, and we can apply these very lessons to the sport of living well. And now let's move into, well, okay, it sounds good. How would I practice it? There's a lot of different ways. You can be aware of the space between the end of an inhalation and the beginning of an exhalation, or vice versa. Just notice that space and rest into it. Not a lot of time, but we need to remember to do it and be deliberate. When you complete a task, take a break for a few seconds or more before shifting to the next. This makes so much sense, but how many times have I finished one thing, check, go right to the next, without even pausing for a few seconds to, whew, okay, that's done. Next. Have real times each day when you truly clock out, no longer on task or accountable to anyone or making every second productive. The mind-brain is like a muscle, and it needs to stop working sometimes to replenish and rebuild. Here's some more suggestions for practice. You can set a timer. I use my iPhone, set a timer for 20, 25 minutes when you sit down to work at your computer. And when the timer goes off, you can stand up, stretch, drink some water. You can palm your eyes. I'll do that right now. Just make your palms warm and just, especially these days when we're in front of Zoom and our computers all the time. It's nice just to give your eyes a little rest. Nap when tired. If you have a flexible schedule or someplace where you can just take a few minutes and nap when you're tired, it's really a good one. And taking a walk in nature if possible. Now we get our 1 minute version. And my suggestion for the 1 minute version is to pause at the end of each inhale, or you can choose to pause at the end of each exhale, whichever you like best, and just rest. So let's do that for a minute. And that's a minute. What does the research say about rest and renewal? Well, we all have peaks and valleys of energy. And our productive creative cycles typically last 90 to 120 minutes. And research shows that having unstructured downtime promotes greater energy, clarity, and creativity. Unstructured downtime, not trying to squeeze some productivity out of it. Researchers have found that idleness stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, which brings a host of helpful outcomes, including reduced heart rate, good digestion, better moods. Busyness can exhaust the nervous system. I love that sentence. It really speaks to me. Busyness can exhaust the nervous system. This is what most of us are doing all the time. We are very, very busy. If we don't do our deliberate rest and renewal, we are exhausting our nervous system. There's a difference between truly quieting the mind and enjoying leisure time. When you take real downtime, you replenish your glucose and oxygen levels, and you're likely to feel more rested, clear-headed, and self-confident as a result. Resting is important. There's a New York Times article which cited some actual studies just demonstrating the importance of rest. Among them, a Stanford researcher found when male basketball players slept 10 hours a night, performance dramatically improved. Daytime naps have a similar effect on performance, which I think is great. A sleep researcher at the University of California, Riverside, found that a 60 to 90-minute nap improved memory tests as fully as did 8 hours of sleep. The importance of restoration is rooted in our physiology. Human beings aren't designed to expend energy continuously. Rather, we're meant to pulse between spending and recovering energy. We're human beings, not human doings. Reminded of that phrase. The secret to retaining the highest level of productivity over the span of a workday is not working longer, but working smarter with frequent breaks. And according to this study that they had done, the reason the most productive 10% of our users are able to get the most done, their working times are treated as sprints. And this is how I have changed my working times as a result of learning about these research studies. Now I do my best to treat my working time as sprints. I have my top priorities, I set my timer, I do that, and then I take a rest and renewal time. Now I don't always do this. Sometimes I just click OK on my phone and just keep working. And when Heather Carey and I delivered a version of this workshop at the Integrative Medicine for the Underserved Conference, one of our attendees said that when they used the timer, they put their phone in the kitchen. So when the timer went off, they had to get up and get it. So how can you treat your working times as sprints? What kind of things would work for you? Working for long periods of time can be detrimental to your level of engagement with a certain task. I think we all know that intuitively. The human brain just wasn't built to focus for 8 hours at a time. The best way to refresh attention span is to take a break. In another study, a psychologist found that virtuoso violin players on average practiced for intervals lasting no more than 90 minutes and no more than 3 sessions in the course of a day. Science tells us that being deliberate about managing busyness and balancing it with dedicated, unstructured downtime, not attempting to do or accomplish anything, which is probably not familiar to all of us on the call, promotes greater energy, mental clarity, creativity, and focus all day. Thriving in our life and work requires activity coupled with regular periods of rest and renewal. Okay, so we covered a lot there. We covered 3 practices: appreciation, mindfulness, and rest and renewal. And we actually engaged in 1-minute practices. So we know that we can do it for 1 minute. And I know that I get something out of those 1 minute. And I'm curious to see whether you all felt like 1 minute did something positive for you as well. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges to practicing in our everyday lives, because we know these things are good for us. We know we could do a minute, but why don't we? And then we'll talk about strategies for addressing these challenges. So I will see if I can get into the chat now and see what's going on. I see there's a question as well. Okay, so thanks for the question, Juliana. Let me see what the chat is first, and then we can see what that is and see if I can answer the question.
Beth, I just so want to thank you for, I mean, all these tips are just so important, and really that connection back to the research that we will actually do better if we create these spaces. And you know, our culture has so eliminated these types of spaces in the average work day, in the average work environment, in the average school environment, and it's really quite simple. I mean, taking a minute or taking breaks after specific time periods or using timers. I mean, just what wonderful tools and reminders that we really have to think about and consciously decide that we're going to bring this into our lives. So I'm really just so grateful.
Well, thank you, Tabby. And it brings to mind, like, how do we build structures? So it's not just one person thinking of how to do it. And my very first internship that I had when I was a master's in public health student, my boss at Kaiser Permanente, every day she would go to her car and nap for half an hour. And so that was my model. It's like, that was in the early 80s. Okay,
Wow.
Going to her car and napping, and that was seen as a good, positive thing. She wasn't hiding. She's like, okay, I'm taking my nap now. I'll be in my car. I'll see you in half an hour. So that was great. Another great thing is building community. So everyone on this webinar now, you know that these things are important. So if you ever see someone else in this webinar, you, hey, how are you doing with rest and renewal? So building acceptance for it is another really positive thing. I see the question from Juliana. What would you advise would be suitable rest period behavior for cancer pain management nurse that has an environment that does not allow for breaks? Great question. That's exactly what we're, you know, on the topic of what we're talking about right now. How do we create environments that are more supportive of this? And I don't have a ready answer for you, Juliana. I think what I do in these situations is go to the bathroom and close the door to the stall. Take 30 seconds there. You're by yourself, hopefully. Nobody is timing you while you're in the bathroom. It's not the optimal solution, but maybe that's something each of us can do. I mean, at one point, having nap rooms or meditation rooms in workplaces was seen as the thing. Like, let's do that. All these hip companies were doing that. Maybe we can sort of make it a thing again and really respect and encourage people and model it that, yeah, I'm taking a 1 minute break. I'm taking a 5 minute break. I don't know. This is an important question of changing culture.
Beth, I'd actually add to, you know, I think that especially in systems, you know, being able to show the research and, you know, talk to supervisors or finding that champion, someone else, whether, you know, it's a coworker or someone that's a director in a program, to say, this is so important. Like, how can we implement 1 minute, like a 1 minute break, like something that's so small that feels almost insignificant to maybe a system like that. Like, okay, we could do that. Starting somewhere where once you create a space to have it be more collective, then you will start to get feedback and hopefully more support, where it's not just, you know, you as
I
one.
love that. That's great.
And I do think that that's one of the just the beauty about some of the strategies that you're sharing, is that they're very, this isn't like, oh, just go take half of a day off. I mean, it's really about learning how to, I loved the suggestion of pausing after you finish one task, just to take, you know, relish that for 1 minute. I mean, I think about in any given day, how many tasks projects do each of us complete? Sometimes hundreds or 50 or 20. I mean, it's not insignificant. And just to think about before that shift to a new task, just taking a few moments. I mean, those are so simple that if you can garner some energy around those things, then you have more possibility to say, oh yeah, we need a nap break, or we need, we need a room for this type of a space, which can, take more time and more buy-in.
Yeah, this is great. And you reminded me, Tabby, that I had prepared a handout for this webinar, and I can send it to you and Jess after this and make it available to all participants. And it kind of has the 3 practices, breaks it down into the 1-minute practice, and it just something to help us, to help implement reminders into our daily life. Are there any challenges to practicing that are showing up in the Q&A or the chat that we should talk about? And if you don't have one ready, I can tell you one that comes up all the time in webinars that I give.
Beth, there is a question in the Q&A about, I'll just read it. I'm thinking of the violinist who practiced 90 minutes 3 times a day. But if one's employer is paying me for 8 hours a day and I'm putting in 4.5, how is that acceptable?
Yeah.
Like what, at what, how do you deal with that from a productivity standpoint?
I like what you said before, Tabby, about, okay, we have some research on this. In my personal experience, it's when I've had enlightened managers who didn't care as much about my face time at the office and the actual hours I was putting in. They cared about what the quality and the amount of work I was getting done. So I was very fortunate. In other situations, when you have that 9-hour or 8-hour, 9-hour clock, that's a different story. And creating work environments that are actually healthy for people and healthy for the organization is challenging. And I know that there are people and groups who are doing that, and I fully support them. And I would look for more of that, because my focus has been more on what we can do as individuals, but the system approach, you're in a system. And there's what you can do, and then there's what's required of your system. And what I talk about is only the changes that we can make really individually. And as Tabby said, there are things we might be able to do to change the system. Taking care of ourselves will make us probably better, be able to focus more on changing the system. But that isn't my area that it's a very, very important area, one that I don't really have more recommendations on. So Tabby, I wonder if you do.
Well, I mean, I do think about, just the kind of the bigger policy work that needs to be done in this area. I think there is if you are, exempt versus non-exempt, just from an actual legal perspective, you do get certain required breaks. And thinking about how we could work towards making that for all employees, because I think part of the challenge is that if you're in the bucket that doesn't get those breaks, then how do you start to bring that consciousness into discussion? But ultimately, I actually think there's a lot of work that has to be done to change the laws in this country that would really, imagine if we really embrace this as a way to move forward in our workplaces. And that it could be more, and some of that could happen at institutional levels first. I truly believe, though, in starting the conversation, even without the solutions, beginning to start those conversations in your own workplaces, even on an email chain to say, hey, like, how can we do something like this? I saw this great webinar, like, how could we make some small changes here to make our space better? And starting with those incremental changes, but then also thinking about that bigger picture of, how could we eventually get collectively to a place where we truly transform the structures that we are all in, Beth?
I would like to add an example of such an institutional organizational change that I've seen. That is at the Academy conference, the annual conference. There are rooms that it's a busy, packed, fun, networking, educational conference. Yet there are rooms you can go have quiet time. You can meditate. There's a massage room. There's a healing touch room. So you're meant to nourish yourself as needed during this really busy, lots of great work flying around time. So good modeling on your part, walking the talk.
Thanks, Beth.
One question that comes up a lot in these webinars is, as a challenge to practice, is I just don't have the time. I just don't have the time, or I don't remember to do it. It's like, great, and we're doing it now. And some strategies for addressing those challenges that have come up is scheduling time in your calendar and then looking at your calendar. And some people rely on their phone and they have alarms or beeps or something. So use technology, having an accountability partner, having someone that you trust that you can say, it's my intention to meditate for 1 minute this week, and in a friendly way, ask them to check in with you. Hey, how did that go? So there is something to being accountable to somebody outside yourself that works for a lot of people, team approach. I'm a very schedule-driven person, so I absolutely do schedule time in my calendar. Sometimes things come up, and instead of just crossing it out, I move it to another time. It's important to notice if you're always moving it, and that's a whole nother thing. But these don't have to take a lot of time, and so those are two things that are possibilities for some people.
I would add, Beth, I recently watched The Social Dilemma, which is a very interesting documentary on social media and our iPhones. But one of the takeaways from that I would think about in this context is, our phones are actually designed to get a Pavlov dog response. So you can set up notifications in ways that remind you and kind of utilize that towards good. Mm-hmm. And again, even if you can't pause in that moment, it begins to form the awareness of, wow, 1 hour passed, or however you want to do that. So just, if you take an hour, you can Google pretty much anything and learn how to set up notifications and set up those pauses either in your calendar, or there's lots of ways to do it on an iPhone, where you're actually then just reminded every day. That is a great tool. And we do have some other questions. I thought maybe I could read them.
Yeah. They can be broader. They can be question about anything.
So Melanie, one of our participants, asks, I appreciated the RAIN technique. My challenge is integrating these tools in a way I actually remember to utilize them. What do you recommend?
Hi, Melanie. That was a very big challenge for me too, especially when I took the great course. I mean, it's so many great courses, so many great teachings, but for the RAIN and all the other mindfulnesses. So at first, I had a practice where I just wrote a Word document, 1 page of the key practices that worked best for me. And I put it in my calendar to read it every day and do one thing. So that helped just to get it into my sort of cellular memory. And then I tried something new after I had done that for a while. And I had an accountability partner where I would just once a week say, my goal is to do this. And it really helped. At the end of the week, I didn't feel any pressure. I just felt a welcome, like, hey, I did it, or I didn't do it. So no story, no explanation, just having that person to sort of report out to. So for me, it's very helpful to have something in writing. I like to have that in front of me. I print it out, I read it, or I have it on the computer. You can even have something on your desktop screensaver. So some sort of visual reminder that comes to me, putting it in my schedule, and having an accountability partner. If you have more time, maybe you have a weekly or monthly group. So you make a commitment to that group where you're going to do the RAIN process or whatever else, once a month, or once a week, whatever it is. It depends on what works for you, what kind of cues work for you, and what kind of time you have. But remembering to do it is probably the biggest challenge, because I think we all conceptually get it, that these are good things, that they work. There's probably a number of practices that you enjoy that can work for you. So somehow scheduling it in so you remember to do it, and using the notifications, or having people, building a community around you. Those are some places to start.
I'd add to that too, one of the things that I've found is just within my own family, like implementing this on a really kind of basic level. No matter, if you have kids, depending on their age, they can actually really help with these types of things when they are included and they are learning about this. And on many levels, my kids point things out to me where I'm like, right, I told you about that, and now you're reflecting it back. But even if it's you commit as a family or with your partner, and at dinner or whatever time you do come together, to take those pauses there and reflect about that. Like, were you able to take a pause today at all? And when was that? And what was that like? And just really, just those moments where you say, okay, every day we're going to talk about this and share. And there might be days where you're like, I didn't do it, or I have nothing to share. But it again takes you out of it just being at work, and really kind of brings it back into your whole life.
I have a friend who did just that with her children growing up, and at the dinner table they would each talk about what was something lucky or something fun that happened for you today. So that was the focus of their dinner conversation. And to go back to the question of how else could I implement this in the blog, I don't do blog posts very often. There's maybe a dozen on my website, but I do think about them, and they come out of conversations with people, just like Melanie asking a question, and they are practical tips that have come out of dialogues and discussions with others. So you might, let's see if I have that as so I have that as my next slide here. Here's my website, and I do have on the blog stories about how practices are used in real life from people who have told me what works for them. A variety of different things.
So a few more questions.
Yeah, good.
One, Dr. Rosenthal, looking back, what was the most integral part of your recovery, or what have you seen to be the most common among others?
One thing that really comes to me is a shift in my mental attitude. And then there's no simple way to have that. I think maybe there just came a tipping point of reading so much, exploring so much, because I did get to a level where physically I was feeling much better, but I still had so much fear and so much anxiety from a lifetime of being sick every day of my life until I was in my 25th year, when I found out I had these food allergies and chemical sensitivities. So I still carried with me all this fear, and I still have fear, but it's something that I go, okay, welcome as a guest in my home, and that's a huge transformation to go from to okay, I don't like this, but welcome as a guest in my home. So the shift in attitude for me to go, well, I think it was Tracy Gaudet in an interview with her, that once she said, well, what if I just ask, what if there was nothing wrong? And just taking that question instead of like, there's something terrible going on, this is scary. What if there's nothing wrong? What if I can just be with this? And John Kabat-Zinn, who when I heard him speak a long time ago, said if you're breathing, then more is going right than wrong in this moment. So that was huge for me, just to stop trying to fix things all the time. I mean, I'm a fixer, I'm an organizer, I'm a planner, I'm a good person to have on your team because I will fix things. But in terms of being healthy, I don't want to be looking for things to fix all the time. I really want to be focusing my attention deliberately on what is working, what is going right. And that shift is not easy to have happen. It does not happen all day long. I mean, it's happening a lot, which is why I feel great and I'm happy and things are going well. And I have wonderful friends, wonderful work. I feel very productive. But it's important to know that it's not every moment, and your family and your close friends know best. Like, it's not every moment, but can you address it as, okay, this is how I feel right now. What do I need? What's the next thing? That continuous conversation if I had to point to one single thing, that's probably it. Just the mental shift of really looking for something to appreciate, accepting where I am more so than I have ever done before. And because I teach this, I really get it, that it's about one small incremental step at a time. Although I may want to be there, I can only move this much at a time, and accepting that has helped me a lot. So I use all the practices that I write about and I talk about. I use them all. And the best part for me about giving a presentation like this is I prepare for it. And so I'm reading my outline every day. Every day I'm doing those 3 1-minute practices. So thank you all for causing me the last few weeks to really embrace this even more intentionally than I normally do.
You know, Beth, I love this, because what you're really talking about is lifelong learning.
Lifelong learning.
And really shifting from, it takes so much pressure off. Like, you don't have to learn this and do this and like have it be one more thing that you can check, yes, I accomplished or didn't. It's really about that shift of, this is a lifelong process, and it's something you move in and out of, and it's that awareness and that really, and that shift in consciousness that truly changes so much. So great advice. Another question.
Being gentle with yourself. Being gentle with yourself along the way.
Absolutely. I think this is another question from Melanie, but perfect segue. Do you think it's appropriate to teach some of these to patients each day, and that would give the practitioner a chance to do it simultaneously for themselves? We were talking earlier, with one of the practitioners, like, how do you find this space if you don't have the support?
Yes.
This could really be a lovely way to do it.
I love it. The biggest thing I would say is to always be an invitation. This is something that is actually a big change in my life. When I was a fixer, like, you need to do this. You really need to do this. I mean, you're okay now, but you really need to do this. Who likes that? In the sense of, like, I know something you don't, and I'm gonna fix you. I mean, I used to do that, and now I'm really careful to make sure I answer an invitation. If someone wants something, I love it. I love that idea. Asking your patients, hey, I have some things that have worked for me. Would you be interested in trying any of them? Instead of, which I trust that everyone on this call would do, it's more of a reminder for all of us that how I feel when someone comes at me. It's a difference between telling me what I should do and that we're going to do it, and offering me an opportunity or an invitation where I feel like I have the choice and I feel like they're giving me a gift. And if you can present it like that, I think they are so lucky, and you're so lucky, and what a great idea.
Is there any one technique you find is just your favorite, or something that has really worked for you? Or it sounds like you use so many of these different.
I do. There is one that I have heard others say this, and I believe it as myself. If you know nothing about any of this, and you know nothing about any health practices or any research, and you practice appreciation, just finding something to appreciate in any situation, about somebody or about something. Be as general as you need to be. If you're really not in a place where you're able to appreciate, if you can practice appreciation, looking for that silver lining, that is all you need to know. You don't need to know any of this other stuff. But sometimes I use all the other stuff too, because it helps me be in a place to appreciation. But if I had only one, I'd say look for something to appreciate.
Wonderful. Thank you, Beth. So we just have a few more minutes, and do you have any kind of parting words that you'd like to share with us?
Yes. have fun. And that's the most important thing. Is we've learned a lot today. We've had an opportunity to practice some things. We've talked about many things. I can't wait to go back and read the chat and see what was happening in the chat. But this is the small step. To be gentle with yourself. Small steps will get us there. And wishing everybody really high vibing health, happiness, well-being, continue the great work you're doing. Thank you for this opportunity to be able to share this with all of you today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Beth. Can we share our screen now? Oh, there we go. Jess is already on it. So I really want to invite all of you. Next weekend is our annual conference, and this year it will, for the first time, be virtual, but it is really just going to be amazing. And I cannot tell you the lineup, the work we're doing, the dialogue that will be taking place around diversity and equity, and the engagement that we will have. I really hope that you will think about coming to the event. Because of that, we will not be having our regular Monday meditation and Friday wellness webinar next week. The conference is live starting Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but you will have access as early as Tuesday, and it will stay open until November 1st. So if you can't, be at every day or be at every talk live, everything will be recorded and you'll be able to access that information and the conversation till the end of October. So we really would love to have you there and hear your voices and hear about what's going on. And then following that week, we'll start right back up into our Monday meditations and wellness webinars. So we'll start on Friday, October 16th will be our next wellness webinar with Mark Arcuri, who is a fellow in our fellowship program and just really amazing practitioner. So thank you again, Beth, truly. If you enjoyed this webinar, think about joining the integrative community. If you want to see this recording, you can go to our YouTube. All of our webinars are saved there. You can watch any of them. You can share them. They're all free resources. You can also find them on our AIHM Facebook page. But we would love you to join a chapter or student alliance, become involved with our global community, and just stay connected. So Beth, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we are so blessed to have you in our community and to share all these wonderful tools. Just very, very thankful. So we'll see you all next week at the conference.
Definitely. Thank you.